Middle Tennessee was picked to win the East, and they're the next team we're going to be talking about right now. Of course, their head coach, Rick Stockstill. Rick, good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Look forward to being here.
Also joining us today is Stephen Rose. I'm from the defense and from the offense, Daniel Stevens. I'm going to talk to you first, Rick. Last year, 7-6. You look at the record, you go, oh, it's okay. But you started the season 2-4. 2 of the losses were a total of 6 points. And then your team, the light bulb came on, if you will. What was the difference first half of the season, second half of the season?
You know, I don't think there was that much of a difference between the first and that second, but we had those 2 really gut-wrenching, heartbreaking losses. You know, a last-second loss to Illinois and the same thing with Vanderbilt. But I give our team credit because, you know, they stuck together, they stayed together, they didn't point fingers during a tough time, and that's when the character and leadership of your team really comes to the forefront during adverse situations. And that's what we did. And we had an open date there before Marshall, and we had a great win there in overtime against those guys, and it kind of just propelled us to the last half of the season.
You know, you were the longest tenured coach in Conference USA, and we talk about numbers on the field, but I want to talk about numbers off the field for you. You've graduated over 95%, about 97% of your players. How proud are you of that stat, more than any other stat you can relate to?
You know, I'm extremely proud of that, and our players deserve the credit. But, you know, as a coach, yeah, winning and losing is important, but helping these guys, most of them come to you as 17, 18-year-olds, except for Stephen here. He was already a man when he got here to us. But so your commitment to them and their families and their parents is to help them, propel them to get on the right path to being successful in life. And that's what it starts with academically. And I say it all the time that you've got to win off the field before you can win on it. And academics is part of winning off the field.
Well, the Brent Stockstill to Richie James Act 2 comes back this year. Of course, Brent is your son, your offense, most productive offense you've had in a long time. Talk about those two and the combination they have.
You know, it's 2 really good players. Both of them are excellent football players. But the thing that I'm really the most proud of them is their work ethic and how humble they are. They don't walk around. They've gotten a lot of accolades last year. They've gotten a lot of preseason accolades this year. But they don't walk around beating their chest, acting like they're better than everybody else. They're extremely hard workers. They're very humble. They're very appreciative players, and they're team first guys. You know, they don't care. And I like to say this: I like players that are more concerned with letters than numbers. And give me a player that wants a W instead of 4,000 yards passing or 25 sacks, whatever. And that's what those guys are. They want letters. They're not concerned about numbers.
Richie James, he was a high school quarterback. Were you surprised of what he did last season?
Yeah, he really was. And I've said that many times that I think Richie got better each day, each week he got better, and we saw more of what he could do with the ball in his hands as the season progressed. And when you're a high school quarterback and then you're a receiver really 1 year in college, your redshirt year, and as a redshirt, you're not up there. You're on the scout team, which he was, so he had the spring and the summer and then August camp, and just his development, his overall knowledge of the position really impressed me, and then just what he did with the ball in his hands. He's a very dynamic player.
And his second half of the season was more productive than the first half of the season.
Ed Batties, our senior receiver last year, who had a phenomenal year, who's kind of the go-to guy early. And, Richie was the kind of Robin, it was Batman and Robin, and Richie was Robin there for a little bit. And then I think the Illinois game, Ed caught 13 balls and Richie had 12. and from that point on, it kind of, hey, this guy's pretty special. And we started designing more things in our offense to get the ball in his hands.
Well, before we talk to the defense, one final question about Richie. Have you talked to him that he's getting a lot of the publicity right now, but that doesn't mean he's here? He's got to take that next step up. Have you talked about that?
Not only him, not just Brent, all of them, but Steven and Daniel and everybody. And that's the attitude that you have to be successful as a player and in life, that you've got to prove it every day. There's a sign in our locker room, prove it every day. And you've got to go out, and what you did yesterday doesn't matter. What we did last year doesn't matter. It's what you're going to do today, what you're going to do tomorrow when that day gets here. So, like I said, they're wonderful attitude. They work extremely hard. And so I don't have any hesitation, any reservations about any of our players, Brent, Richie, Steven, Daniel, any of these guys, where they'll feel entitled or get complacent. They've got a wonderful work ethic.
Defense, you lost 5 of the top 6 tacklers. How do you fill those holes?
It'll be tough, but we'll rely our front guys, our front 4 are seasoned guys. They're older guys. There's a lot of senior leadership up there. So we'll rely on those guys heavily early in the season. I think we're going to replace the people we lost with. They're probably going to be a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more athletic. At a lot of those positions, they just haven't played yet. So I like the speed and athleticism of our defense, and we've got to have a great camp, a great August camp where these guys develop as players on the back end.
Well, let's talk about defense with Stephen Rhodes. He was a Marine for 5 years. First of all, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Coming into this season, how special is it for you?
I look at each year, like I was saying earlier, I look at each season as my last season anyway. I don't want to have any regrets when I'm done playing. And I love this team. I love the way we've gelled together over the years, and we get more and more dynamic every year. So I feel that we have a great chance to do some good things this year, and I'm just excited.
Do they have nicknames for you? Since you're the oldest man on the team, do they have nicknames for you? Not that they say to your face, mind
It's
you.
endless. Granddad, Captain Rhodes, Captain America, Sergeant Sack, all of that.
Because he was a sergeant in the Marines. What did the Marines teach you that translated to football?
Taught me everything. Just taught me how to be a man, leadership, discipline, just how to shake that laziness that I had as a young man, as a kid. It's just been phenomenal, the foundation that it's built for me.
But when you see other players maybe not doing what they're supposed to do and living up to expectations, does that make you mad? And do you talk to them? Because obviously the Marines taught you that doesn't cut it.
It doesn't make me mad. If anything, I understand it because I've already been there. I've already done that. I've been through the foolishness. So now at that point, it's just kind of getting them to understand, because I'm a lot closer to them in age and just standpoint in life than the coaches are. We have a much closer gap. So I just try to help them understand. It's some things you got to put away. At a certain time, put away childish things and take care of your responsibilities so you can be successful.
Now, you also are married, have a couple of kids. How do you balance football, family, studies? How do you do that?
Very carefully.
Because when you come home, I'm sure your 2 kids that are under the age of 5, they want to play.
They don't care anything about what you did. They don't care that you've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. None of that matters. I just feel like God has just blessed me with a great support system. My wife, Adrian, has definitely made this process as easy as it can be for me. So, there's a lot to do. Being a football player, a student, a husband, a father, just a man in general. It's a lot to balance, but I feel that it's kind of that diamond effect. You got to go through a lot of pressure for that diamond to come out on the other side. So.
Well, let's talk some offense. 963 snaps last year. That's a lot of snaps, big guy.
It is a lot of snaps.
But you would probably rather be doing that than sitting, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, tell me about your offense this year when you have the dynamic duo that you had as far as quarterback and wide receiver. Does that make your job easier, or does that make your job more difficult?
Well, it definitely makes our job easier. I mean, having players like that, and it just doesn't end with Brent and Richie James. I mean, we have running backs like Tavius, Dez, other receivers, Frage, that have had a lot of snaps, played a lot of ball, and of course, it makes our job easier up front. But our ability up front will bring them to the next level, and it'll be good for us.
One of my broadcast partners is an offensive lineman, and he always says offensive linemen are smarter than defensive linemen. No offense. But you look at this offense that you run, you have a lot of formations, unbalanced, jet sweeps, fake jet sweeps. You got a lot on your plate when you go to the line of scrimmage, correct?
Yes, sir.
Talk about what the process you go through when you're in the huddle to when you break.
Well, we're in no huddle, and getting up to the ball, basically my first job is determining what kind of defense, whether it's 4 front, 3 front, how many linebackers are in the box, or is it just one, how many safeties, and then we kind of set our for pass protection, we set our slide side, or we man, or go. So you go through defense and you go through pass protection, and then that's kind of where we go, and then you snap the ball.
Obviously, we're successful. The most productive offense in the history last season. How do you top that?
Just get better every day. I mean, a lot of the core players are still back. Of course, we lost some good players in DJ and other people, but you just got to get better every day in the offseason, continue to work hard in the weight room and run and get in better shape. And then here in August, just close attention to detail and pay attention, and that's how you get better.
Now, Coach, you bring Tony Franklin, an offensive coordinator, back at his old job, last 6 years at Louisiana Tech and Cal. What does he bring to the table as an offensive coordinator?
Well, I think the first thing is he's had great success in every place he's been. So he brings an air of confidence, hey, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing, buy into what we're doing here and we'll be successful. So I think that, and he's a great teacher, great fundamentals, stressing the fundamentals at all positions. So he's a great communicator. So I think I'm really excited for him to be back and look forward to this year.
You look at his offenses too, and one of the things that stands out, to be very successful in his offense, you got to be deep at wide receiver. Do you have that depth at wide receiver?
Well, I think our first 4 or 5 guys are good. I'm really excited about Terry Pettis and Demetrius Frazier. I think those 2 guys are a little bit unsung heroes right now, not getting, Richie's getting a lot of the credit, at receiver, which he deserves. But I think Terry had a phenomenal year last year. Demetrius has been very consistent and has gotten better, and I think he'll have a really good year this year. Then behind him, we've got some guys that, haven't played, some younger guys that have got to come on. So August will be critical for them, for those guys this summer. One
final question. Now you have the target on your back as picked to win the East. Good, bad, indifferent for you? I'm glad it's there. I'm glad people respect our players, that they think we're pretty good. But it was the same goal last year when we weren't picked to win it. Our goal was to win the conference. We came in second. Now we're picked to win it, but just because you're picked something, you have to go out there every day and prove it. So I've said all along, I believe in this team. I believe in this team. I'm excited about this team, and I'm anxious to get out there and see if we can reach our full potential, individually and collectively as a team, to be the best we can be. Well, you're right on the cusp of it, gentlemen. You got to start sweating in a week or so. Rick, thank you so much.
You.
Wish you the best of luck. Gentlemen,
Appreciate
stay
it.
healthy.
Thank
We'll
you.
continue our coverage. Conference USA Media Day up next, the UTEP Miners.